Hi, you're listening to Paralegal Real Talk, a contributing series to the Paralegals on Fire podcast, and I'm your guest host, Linda Odermott. We call this contributing series Paralegal Real Talk because when we get together, I'm going to spill the tea about where and how things are changing in the legal profession while sharing my perspective about those changes. On today's episode, I am extremely excited to have the pleasure to interview Sateesh Nori. Sateesh is a lawyer, a law professor, and an author. He's a senior legal innovation strategist at Just Tech. And for 20 years, he represented tenants across New York City at various legal services organizations. He was a commissioner of the 2019 Charter Revision Commission, and he's currently a member of the ABA Commission on Homelessness and Poverty. He co-created and co-teaches the Housing Rights Clinic at NYU Law, and he is a graduate of Johns Hopkins University and NYU Law. Sateesh was named a rising star by the New York Journal, one of Queen's Power 50, and was featured as a legal rebel in the spring 2021 ABA Journal. In 2023, he was a recipient of the New York City Bar Association's Legal Services Award, and he is also the author of Sheltered, 20 Years in Housing Court. In 2024, he gave a TEDx talk called How a Chatbot Can Stop Homelessness. And our thanks to Sateesh for taking the time to come and talk to us today. And welcome.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here and to talk to an audience that I don't really get to reach usually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been wanting to get you on for a while, like probably 6 months or so, that I felt like timing wasn't right for you. You were busy. So but I wanted to start with just like how you self-identify as an ABA legal rebel. How are you disrupting the historical practice of law?
Yeah, thank you so much for reminding me of that ABA legal rebel thing. I think, first of all lawyers should be legal rebels. Everyone in the legal space who is confronting this crisis of access to justice and the lack of help that's available to the average person and the cost of legal work should be thinking in terms of, rebellion. Like we should tear down this system that doesn't work and it hasn't worked for hundreds of years. I heard this joke recently. How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is, how many can you afford?
It's true.
And that's the way we are now. And so, I'm always, or I've been thinking lately and for the last few years about how we can change the way we work, the way we think about these services, and the way we offer our skills to people who need our help. Corporations don't need our help. They'll be fine. They have teams of lawyers already working in their buildings. But the average person has no chance of navigating everyday issues like consumer law and housing and family law and so on.
That makes a ton of sense, and I think you're right in that. I think that's why we're seeing so many access to justice programs that are coming out that are just unique or different, or community justice workers or licensed paralegals or housing court advocates, whatever those programs are, right? So how did you get started in housing court in general? Like, how did that come about?
I always wanted to do something that helps people solve problems. And I joined thinking I would do human rights work. But then if you think about what human rights work is, it is people writing reports and going to conferences and talking about things with other human rights people. And the average person doesn't even know what a human rights lawyer does. They never interact with one unless they're in a war zone or something. So that seemed pretty irrelevant. And also, I couldn't get a job in that field. So that answered itself. I applied for a job as a housing attorney and legal aid in New York City, and I got the job. And that's really all it took for me to start on a 20-year path doing that type of work. And what I realized is, doing work that is relevant and that is impactful, and that is fast paced, and that is, interacting with a lot of people and helping people solve their problems is really rewarding. It's really fulfilling as a job. And unfortunately, I've learned over the years and from talking to my own friends from law school and my colleagues, finding a legal job that's fulfilling is pretty hard. Most lawyers are pretty unhappy. I think we're second to dentists in terms of, job satisfaction, and dentists literally inflict pain. So what does that tell you about lawyers? Um,
Yeah.
so that's how I ended up doing this. I just lucked out. I can't, stress that enough. There was so much luck involved in me getting to where I am right now.
That makes a lot of sense. From a paralegal perspective, I can tell you it's the same situation. Like we are helpers, first and foremost. Like that's why we go into law or how we become paralegals. And to find a place or a role that you find fulfilling, and doing the good work of helping others is a gift. Like it's hard to find for sure. Um, okay, so I just want to do a little movement over to a new topic. And I know you're doing a ton of work in the AI space, and so I just wanted to find out from you how you're leveraging AI and how it's impacted the programs that you're most proud of.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, for the last 2 years or so, I've really embraced technology and particularly AI, not because I have a tech background. Sometimes I joke with my friends that I don't even know how email works. I couldn't explain to you how the internet works. And yet, here I am talking about AI like I'm some kind of software engineer or expert. But really, I kind of gravitated towards AI because it works and it addresses a lot of the things that lawyers find so frustrating about their work, and paralegals included. The things that we do over and over again, the repetitive tasks, the same old questions that we keep answering, things like translation and preparing forms and doing intake. This is important, but it doesn't really test our abilities. It doesn't really encourage us to work to the extent of our intellect or efforts. And it takes up so much time. A colleague of mine calls it thunking versus thinking. We're doing a lot of thunking, which is so tedious and mind numbing, and it burns us out, and not that much thinking. And we can all do more thinking by using these tools that do a lot of that stuff automatically. And the other thing that struck me is like a lot of people already interact with tools. People like to text, they like to use chatbots, they shop online, they don't go to stores anymore. They're used to this interface where they get services through technology. So why not lawyers, right? Why are we stuck in this model where people have to travel across town and sit and wait in our offices only to be told they either can't afford the help or they have to come back because the place is too busy
Mm-hmm.
or that they can't help them at all? No one likes that. No one works that way. No one seeks services that way or shops that way. No one gets medical care that way. No one gets, pharmaceuticals that they need that way. So why do they need to get lawyers and legal help that way? And AI has been incredible just in how fast it's developed in the last year in doing so many of those things. Take translation. It's such a barrier to so many people who can't get legal help because they speak a language that is not offered in their community or in their courthouse or at their legal services office, or at their school. Well, translation is an easy task for AI. It needs to be checked, but it's a lot easier to check a translation than to do a translation from scratch. And so, I was attracted to these tools because it really frees us up to do a lot more direct and impactful work for people.
Smart. Also the fact that you're doing that without a tech background just speaks to one, the need, and two, also that anyone can use AI, right? And so when we remove barriers, we remove the problems that access to justice has been, dealing with for decades. So I applaud you for being revolutionary in that aspect. Is there a specific way that you're using it? I know you just rolled out an app. Is that right?
Yeah, there's two things that I've done in the last 8 months. The first one is to address an issue that impacts hundreds of thousands of people in New York City, where I live, and that is housing conditions. So, no, New York City, many people know, is a city of renters. A lot of people live in apartment buildings, and they're dealing with landlords who are trying to make as much money as they can and cut corners. And so I've been seeing people, young families, elderly folks not having heat, having bed bugs and roaches, broken elevators, things that really impact their quality of life and also their mental health, their physical well-being, their ability to send their kids to school, the ability of kids to succeed in school. Low-income kids have higher rates of asthma because of the housing conditions they live in, no heat, drafty windows, the pesticides and insecticides that landlords use that are so cheap, but they really hurt kids too. Um, and so the problem I realized is that there are never going to be enough lawyers to help people with these basic problems. And we're in a model of scarcity. A lot of people have been talking about scarcity and abundance lately. And the scarcity model is we can only help you if you're in crisis and if it's the last resort. Otherwise, wait in line. And why does it have to be that way?
Mm.
Well, one reason is like we fund everything on the scarcity model. There isn't enough money to have enough people to help in cities and across the country on basic legal problems. And so, with some friends and a tech company called Joseph, we rolled out an app called Roxanne. And, if you're over 40, the song Roxanne just popped into your head.
Yes.
If you're under 40, you've never heard of the police, and it doesn't mean anything to you. But Roxanne AI helps tenants answer basic questions about their housing conditions. Right now, it works in New York City, but it can work anywhere. We just need local partners to give us the local laws and rules, and we can make it work. And the way it works is through something called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. So it's an AI model that only draws information from a specific knowledge base, something that we write. So instead of looking on Facebook and Reddit and making up stuff, we all hear about hallucinations, a RAG bot basically draws content just from a source that we build or you build. And so by using that, we've been able to stand up this model that's public already right now, and people can get what I call actionable legal information. I don't have heat. What do I do? Well, Roxanne will give you 5 steps on how to get your heat back on. And within each of those steps, you can search deeper into where that information comes from. So you can make sure it's not made up. It's real. Here's the law if you want to learn more. And in the future, I imagine Roxanne rolling out in Spanish and Chinese and Bengali and Creole and any other language. There's 150 languages spoken in New York City, so we have a long way to go. And you think about all of those people who have no access to any kind of help, and they're suffering. Their kids are suffering. Elderly folks are suffering. So this kind of technology can easily provide information that people can act on. And it can work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, never takes vacation, never gets tired. Those are things that I'm guilty of, right? I get tired. I don't give good answers at the end of the day when I'm tired and hungry and want to go home. I can only see so many people a day. It's really, really tiring. And so technology can answer those questions. And Roxanne provides this service because lawyers and legal services don't do it. They don't have any time to do it because it's not an eviction. So it's not a crisis. The heat, maybe they'll come back on. Good luck. That's what we tell people. And the second tool is called Depositron. And it helps people get their security deposits back from landlords. I don't know if you've ever rented an apartment and at the end of your lease, you worried, well, will I get my security deposit back or will the landlord blame me for something minor that happened?
Mm.
Well, this is a problem that, hundreds of thousands of people face every year. And a lot of them never get their money back because where they live, it's too hard to fight for it. And landlords know this. And so they exploit people, they exploit students, they exploit immigrants, they exploit people who are, transitory. They're moving somewhere for work and they have to go back. They're never going to stick around to fight for this extra money. So Depositron is a letter builder tool that works from your phone. And in under 5 minutes, it helps you prepare a letter that you can send to your landlord to demand the money back. And often this is thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
I recently heard that half of Americans have less than $800 in their bank accounts at any given point. And
Yeah.
so if you can get back a couple of $1,000s, that's a lot of money. That is a huge win. And to be able to do it using a free tool that works on your phone is a real benefit. And so Depositron works in New York City, soon in all of New York State.
Mm.
And we've heard from people all across the country who've said, hey, this is a problem where I live too. Landlords just don't give the money back. And no one has time to go to court or to fill out forms or to file a complaint because we have to move on with our lives. So these are just two simple tools that sometimes I wonder, they're not that special. Anybody could have built them.
Mhm.
But, I guess somebody had to push the button and make it work. And I happen to be in that role.
Yeah.
And so I'm really happy about having that opportunity.
I think you bring up a point that there's this fear of AI, right? There's a resistance to the unknown, right? And so I think the legal profession has that fear about a lot of things, especially anything that there's newness to. And you bring up some really good points, like having that closed system where, the data that AI is using to create responses is contained is super helpful for people to understand. So that it's not pulling from Google or, whatever, because that is where we get in trouble when it's not truthful sources. I think to your point about the deposits, it is a rigged system. Like the system is set up for landlords to win all the time. Even just showing up to any kind of landlord tenant, like they already can have representatives where the tenant's not automatically provided that. So any kind of tool like these is beneficial to those people because they all need help. So I love those. Uh, Thanks for sharing those.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to ask you, like, just as we're nearing the end, how can others get involved? Like, our audience is mostly paralegals. How can they get involved and find out more?
That's such a great question. No one knows better than paralegals how obstinate lawyers are and how unwilling they are to change and how unwilling they are to adapt and evolve.
Mm.
And I think there is this tremendous opportunity for people in the legal community as a whole, paralegals and legal assistants, law students, even people who work in community-oriented jobs like teachers and firefighters and nurses, to use some AI tools to provide legal help to people. There is this model in Alaska called the Justice Worker Project, because in Alaska, there are some towns in which there are no lawyers and the closest lawyer lives 300 miles away. But that doesn't mean people's lives stop. They still have, divorces and they have education issues for their kids and they have housing issues and they have employment issues. So what are they supposed to do?
Mm.
So the Justice Worker Project helps train local community members who are not lawyers about legal issues. And the ability for AI tools to support and supplement that type of work is tremendous. And so, someone who cares, someone who has the knowledge already about the way the law works, like paralegals, paired with an AI tool, imagine how much help you can give people who need it. And this is the type of help that lawyers can never give, either because they'll never make enough money doing it, or because they're, legal services lawyers and they're already overburdened with much more, serious or emergency cases. And so I would say, like, adopt these tools, play with these tools, see what you can do to, first make your own work easier in your day job, because it can do that. And two, like, think beyond that and say, how can I be a member of my community who is contributing and can bring my skills to help as more people who need that help, and not serve as a barrier, not be a gatekeeper. I think the legal field is famous for being a gatekeeper and keeping people out of the legal system because they want to make money. Instead, they should be welcoming people into the legal system and saying, you can use it too. It's your system. This is your courthouse. That's your judge. You should be able to get some justice out of it. And I think we have that opportunity, and paralegals can be at the forefront of that because we all know lawyers aren't going to do it.
It's true. I teach paralegal students at the local community college, and one of the things I've started to do is include AI as part of our conversations. And none of the other instructors are doing that. And so the students are hungry to find out more and to include it in their research and to double check things and to just as starting drafts for some of their writing, or even, just looking at it from the perspective of how can it make my life easier? Like, can it check my emails and summarize it for me and figure out what are my to-do lists for the day? So great call outs for real. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So as we're wrapping up, is there anything else you'd like to talk about or that we didn't discuss that you'd like to just pitch for?
No, I mean, the only thing I would say in closing is that, our world, the legal world, is about to change
Mm.
in a way that we've never anticipated before. And, I'll say it here and now. Like, I don't want to say I told you so, but in the next year, 3 years, 5 years, the legal system that we're going to be looking at is going to be completely different from what we have now. And my call on all of us is to make sure that it's a better change and not a worse change. And we have both of those things at hand.
That's a lovely sentiment to end on. Thanks, Sateesh. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you, Linda. It's my pleasure.
Want to find out more and cannot wait until the next episode? Check out the links to the reports and programs described in this episode by going to the Paralegals on Fire with Ann Pearson podcast on paralegalbootcamp.com. See you next time.